As an American, there's nothing we like more than to play military dress up, especially if we don't actually have to fight anything. So this is a perfect military cosplay watch. Okay, it's very pretty looking. You got a strap that is sort of this unspecified, I'm part of some unit. I don't know what that little targety anchor thing is. Again, I would love it without the GMT, but why not?
Greetings, welcome to this week's aBlogtoWatch Weekly. For those of you that can't wait to the normal Thursday, Friday for this appear, remember you can go and look at the aBlogtoWatch Weekly live YouTube channel and either join us live when we record, normally on a Tuesday morning, 7:30ish UK time, or just go there to see the full unedited recording that also has a little bit extra at the beginning and a little bit extra at the end. We've already discovered this morning why Ripley doesn't need to carry around with him the full instruction manual to the Mondaine Stop-to-Go watch. So much joy to be had in Ripley's luggage allowance, not having to carry around that particular watch. It has been a week in watches for sure. Lots of commentary, and we're going to get stuck right in there with, I think, what is the most commented on article beyond an article whereby you need to comment on it to win a prize. In fact, I think it's even running ahead of the articles that you comment on aBlogtoWatch if you want to win a free watch, and that is David's Patek Philippe owner Thierry Stern's Cubitus response is exactly why people like to see giants fall. Who doesn't like to see a giant fall? Gents, in the past, what giants have you enjoyed seeing falling?
Every single one of them. People love this. People love seeing giants fall. David and Goliath. This goes back to like pre-electricity and running water Roman times. People love seeing empires and the tyrants, and they love seeing giants fall. And I mean, look, I don't even follow American football. I follow what you Europeans call football, which we call soccer, even though you use your feet exclusively. Anyway, I've never been so happy in an NFL game in my life than when the Patriots had a perfect season and then lost in the Super Bowl. I don't even follow it, but I love to see that epically successful team and the epically successful Tom Brady absolutely get up to up. I'm going to use even a football reference here. Get up to the 1 yard line and then absolutely fumble it in the 11th hour. Back to watches. So I honestly like, I think this is just a human thing. You know, we secretly, I think, want success to be warranted and merited. And when there is someone in a highly, successful giant, if you will, position, I think it's just so human to want to see a misstep to let us know that they're not inhuman, and that, even the absolutely ironclad Patek Philippe can make a misstep, which, it's human. Humans make mistakes, but, I digress.
My thoughts on this relate to the notion that power corrupts. Giants tend to be powerful, and they're not all corrupted, but power does tend to corrupt. And so when someone has reached a huge size, there's a huge expectation that they remain polite. And so what happens is when a giant gets so powerful that they also get corrupt and they're so obvious about it, everyone's like, okay, time to let someone else in charge that may also be polite about it. And so the statements that Mr. Stern unfortunately made in response to some interview questions, I doubt he gave them nearly as much thought as we are talking about his statements, um, demonstrated impoliteness that can happen when you have power. So I think for me, we like to see giant jerks fall. And I think Patek Philippe is a company that has called itself a giant, had giant prices around its watches at auctions that, I'm pretty convinced they have something to do with, charges giant retail prices more so than others, yet has not maintained the expected level of politeness and dignity that I think is expected of the giants that we allow to stay giant. So for me, that's well defines what happened.
David, how are you feeling about this article, living up to your namesake versus Goliath?
Yeah, I think so. It's interesting. I genuinely believe that we've given enough time for Patek and for this whole thing to come to the fore. It's not an immediate reaction to the Cubitus. If
Long time coming is what David means.
Yeah, it's not an immediate reaction to the Cubitus. It's like, oh, look at this. It's probably not going to be a popular watch collection. That's not what this is about. And it's not even people say, oh, people will buy this. Well, that's sort of irrelevant in many ways. It's more about Patek's approach and attitude from the last number of years, and actually a number of other brands have this coming their way as well. So I think they should just tone things down a little bit when it comes to how they present themselves to the greater community, which is inclusive of watch media, but it's not limited to it, of course.
Yeah. Do you think one of the problems is that Mr. Stern takes a particularly smug photograph?
I don't think he knows how to take a photograph. Every time I see him in picture, he's like, "Is this how I stand? Is this what you want me to do?" I think he's just.
But that's
like,
human
"Can I
nature.
go
That's
now?"
fine. But not everybody who doesn't know how to pose great makes a smug face all the time. It's not like that. And thanks to the wonders of digital photography, you can take a look at the photo that was just taken moments ago and then say, well, I look kind of smug on that. Let's take another one. Or you can just roll with it.
You know what it is? It's the exact same look on his face that his father had in pictures. Look at pictures of his father. It's the exact same look on his face. It's just
Apples and
it made sense
trees,
for yeah, it made sense for
certainly.
his father, not him.
But we also must look at this, just, take one step back and look at the thematic context of the brand. This is a brand that says you never really own one of our watches. You merely look after them for the next generation. This is a man who is literally the next generation taking over this brand that has cultivated this slogan over the course of decades. This gets so meta that he is literally the generation that this was looking after, and now he's entrusted with this brand that makes the watches that no one really owns, that looks after them for the next generation. But he is the next generation who takes over this brand and has been at the helm of it for this long. So it's I think when I first read the title of the article, and before we had our editorial meeting, I was like, oh man, David just wants to absolutely kick the Cubitus. Well, it's getting an absolute licking from the industry. But then I read it, and I thought the piece was really poignant. Had nothing to do with the Cubitus. It was just framing it within the context of the Cubitus as the most recent thing. But it was really more of an examination of sort of his approach to how he's presented the products within the context of himself over the course of his tenure. And I thought that was I think a very parallel but poignant story given all of the Cubitus discussion that's happened over the course of the last week or so.
Do you think Patek Philippe is guilty of surrounding themselves with exclusively yes men? This is sort of something I mentioned in one of the comments on David's article, and I have a whole other article I wrote about this. But I think that we don't like it when powerful companies are afraid of naysayers or opinions that go against what they say. And this goes to what David said about long time coming. Patek Philippe has engineered a little circle of people that just glowingly love what it does, or they don't get invited back to stuff. So I want to know your opinions on this.
Well, I think there's a quote that David actually specifically cited that more or less alludes, like answers your question as far as, how the brand views that specific matter. But I think I think it's common at any extremely high level, but more than just the people surrounding the brand, they've cultivated for decades a collector community that is beyond passionate about the brand, but almost to a you know to a sense where they can't also recognize that the brand might have make a shortcoming here in there. In sports, it's natural. Sometimes your team wins, sometimes your team loses, sometimes that hero star of the team has a bad game and does something that causes a loss. In the natural human shakeout of events, you see these shortcomings, and there's a certain human element imbibed to that. But like, I think as far as the point you're making, there's a quote that I think Rick highlighted right here on the screen that alludes exactly to that point specifically, and address and answers it in the brand's words itself.
What is the quote? It's too small for me to see.
It says, I've been responsible for creation for a long time. I'm good at it without really having a clue. I never went to design school, but I grew up with the product and I have strength in that. Why? I don't know. It's always been easy for me to have ideas and go into the details. Then it says, I don't go to clients with designs and ask them for their opinion. Never. I don't work with external designers either. We've done that, but it never worked. Also, I really have endless ideas. We recently had a meeting that resulted in 20 different models.
It's like a 13-year-old is explaining what he did at school.
He's actually, none of those were actually the part I was referencing. The one where it's like, I've had lots of knowledgeable people tell me this is good. So like, and I know it's good because I grew up with it. So it's good. It was the part where he's hearing people agree with his ideas. And in my opinion, I think, the testament of a good idea is where someone says, yes, but have you thought of this? And you have that dialogue that kind of flushes out anything that hasn't come to the surface. I don't ever want to present an idea saying, what do you think of this? And it's just overwhelming positivity, because even if it's a great idea, no one person can think of everything. And I think it's important that certain things get sort of run by a committee of like-minded individuals. And, you know, this naturally happens at a brand because no one person creates these products. But I think having people who are willing to speak against you is important. And it, you know, it ultimately comes from a positive place where they're not disagreeing with you to be difficult or because they don't like you, but like you need those people at a company because it's important to have them to start the dialogue that ultimately flushes out certain ideas. Saying that a lot of people agree with you and that it's great means absolutely nothing. That just means that you've managed to surround yourself with people that are either too afraid to say anything differently or are so of the same mindset that nothing productive can happen from the discussion.
So here's the other question: Where's Team Patek? Where's the defense? Why is it like only
Patek prison, Ariel? We know where they're going.
No, but like all he says, I have all these groups of people. They love everything I do. You know, where are these people? We don't block their comments. Okay, I even said in the comments, hey, it's got to be someone around here that thought this was a smooth launch and stuff like that. Like, the anger and I think some of the resentment towards the positioning that Patek Philippe has done, and some of the strange, like, this is the only luxury watch brand that matters, like all this nonsense about it. Like, people are coming out of the woodwork getting quite irritated about this, but no one's like, I've been a diehard Patek collector my entire life and I would never go to anything else. These are the best and here's why. Like, maybe it's somewhere on the internet, but I haven't seen it anywhere. So I'm just not saying their watches are bad, but I think that's what the aBlogtoWatch team has been thinking for years. We're like, what's all the fuss about? Like, they're okay, but like, I don't understand the fuss. And David and I, we chat about the fuss and other people, and it's a lot of fuss. And now it's like, they've gotten too fussy. There's a line. You can get too fussy for your own good.
Can I ask a question? Yeah, because the way that the quote is phrased, is Thierry Stern actually a watchmaker? Like, can he actually? Is he qualified in any way?
I wondered about that too. Yes, I'm not
Thierry
sure.
Stern has an honorary degree in everything. Don't you know that?
from every Swiss university
Just
there is.
trade a watch for it. It's very easy.
David Ariel, how many watchmaking courses have you taken in the realm of just journalistic duties? I worked at a service center a few years before I started writing about watches. I've definitely like put together some IWC or JLC movements. You know, I think if you just really wanted to stretch this envelope, I'm sure he's sat with one of their top watchmakers and said, explain to me what this thing does. Yeah, how do I do that? And like whether or not he's physically capable of doing it, because it takes a certain degree of, beyond the theory, it takes a certain degree of just physical dexterity and practice to do certain things when assembly of the movements. I think this enters a gray area where unless he's like a WOSTEP, or CW21 certified or something like that, I think it enters the nebulous realm of like, how much did he, but
didn't he just piss off everyone else at the company by he's saying, I am Patek Philippe. Patek Philippe is me and there's no one else. Everyone else is just staff or something. Like, everyone is so insulted by this.
Look, if he really wants to put it all on the table and like call this bluff, he should personally service every single Grandmaster chime that comes back for a warranty repair. And
who listens to them?
But no, honestly though, like maybe it'd be interesting to give
all our employees are tapped, and I'm listening to the feeds all the time, 24 hours a day. It's all in my ears. What every employee says.
It needs more cowbell. The tone isn't right.
Yes, he's listening to Rush records in the background going,
Oh my.
Greubel.
I mean, honestly, if you look at the responses from people, I don't think this is just Schadenfreude. I think it's Schadenfreude. I think it's more than that. It's not like, haha, they failed. It's much more a valve for people to finally let all
The
this
failure happened
frustration
a
and
long
all of
time
this.
ago. That's our point.
Exactly. I just wanted to underline that it's not about this one watch that failed. And the same thing, the exact same thing happened to AP, although to a lesser degree, but the same dynamic was present at the Code 1159. They've been
Yes,
shoving
surrounded by
down.
yes men, and that we're only saying positive things, while everyone else is like, the Emperor's got new clothes, doesn't he?
I mean, Ariel, they had a minute to do it. It's 11:59 for a reason. They didn't have time to disagree. But David,
Doomsday is upon us. I got it.
I have a question for you as the person who wrote the article. Do you think that if Thierry Stern hadn't had such a history of aligning himself as the grand arbiter of all things Patek and like the creative driving force, do you think he would be so hurt by people's negative reaction to the Cubitus? You know, if he was more of the, you know, removed CEO mindset of like, well, yes, we're at the helm of this brand. Certainly we make watches. They're different styles. They're not for everyone, but I don't make these. And, you know, we have a long game plan here. And if you don't understand it in the short run, like, I'm not here to explain it to you. But do you think if he wasn't trying to, you know, more or less verbally taking credit for a lot of the creative direction and, you know, my design, he wouldn't have such a negative reaction to people's negativity towards basically, I guess, his baby, for, you know, if we want to discuss it in the terms that he's kind of laid out as his creation. Do you think that if he hadn't been trying to be at the helm of it, he would have received this differently, or wouldn't have been compelled to make such a bold statement in response to the criticism?
Yeah, I mean, I think that goes almost without saying. It's a very understandable dynamic. Once you commit to something and once you call it your own, you're much more likely to go out and defend it and be very defensive about it. As a CEO, it's interesting because what is done, I think, is pretty close to what a good CEO actually does, which is to say, look, we worked as a team on this and we've made these decisions, but I'm at the helm of this company and I take responsibility whether it fails or it succeeds. Ultimately, it's my responsibility, which would have been a great thing to say, but it's not what happened. It's sort of what happened is like, this is my responsibility and everyone who doesn't like it is stupid or broke. You know, that's not the way good diplomacy works or good PR works anyway.
What if he just said, you know, I found the, you know, reaction from people interesting. While I can't do it, I'd love to sit down people on a one-to-one basis and tell them why I love this, what I think is cool about it, and show them why we stand behind this product. I'm sorry if there's people that don't like it, but maybe someday I'll have a chance to share with them, you know, my Patek Philippe.
Can you imagine sitting down with somebody face to face who doesn't like it and telling it to their face? Like, how long could you do this before you get smacked in the mouth? Like, oh, you're broke anyway. You're never gonna have one of these. You wouldn't want to sit down with anybody face to face with that sort of attitude because I don't think that would work out too well.
Look, I'm just saying he takes the spoiled route. The like, I'm spoiled and I can be spoiled, and for some reason I like to portray that I'm spoiled, and that's the attitude that appeals to our wearers. I think he's trying to say, if I represent the average Patek Philippe owner, this is a whole group of people we don't want to hang out with, and we know that's wrong. If I was a Patek Philippe owner, I'd be like, that doesn't represent me. I'm not a jerk like that.
Exactly. I don't think he does. I don't think there's a representation going on.
But he
he's
thinks
more
that like it's all this one collective thing. Me and the watches and all the other people that love it, we're all the same.
Yeah, that's actually, yeah, sort of the vibe I'm getting as well. That's true.
Yeah, we don't want this to represent the attitude of our wealthy, right? We want to admire our wealthy. We want them to be role models. We want to feel that with their money and power and taste comes some type of wisdom that we can look up to. Nobody wants to look up to this attitude. Nobody wants this person in charge. This is the type of person that if they were your boss, they'd make some real cruel and insensitive decisions on a regular basis, right?
Seeing as we're recording this on Tuesday the 5th, this quote, I think I'm being triggered by this quote and a certain person who may or may not be elected by the end of Tuesday the 5th.
Uh-oh, it's going there.
Well, it is going there. It's like,
Brace yourselves.
this could have been this quote here. We've done that, but it never worked. Also, I really have endless ideas. They're all brilliant ideas. They're all great ideas. We recently had a meeting that resulted in 20 different models. That to me sounds like the same design meeting that Donald Trump was in for the Trump watch. We had lots of great ideas. I've got the best ideas. It's just it just feels odd. And I'd love to know what the other 19 models were. You know, do you think one of them was like octagonal? It was just different shapes. It was like a kid's TV show. Here's the triangle watch.
I can also shout 20 dial colors for the square watch and get you there just as quickly. You know, it's who knows what 20 different models actually equates to. I can't imagine he's telling the movement team to scramble and he needs 20 independent movements to go power these. I have a feeling we're going to be getting a lot of color variations, metal variations, and maybe things no one necessarily asked for.
I mean, one of them's not been a daylight savings watch. Let's face it. He's not decided, Patek, you need to design a complication to deal with daylight savings because that's the time of year we're launching this. You're right. It's just been 20 different color variations from something to something else on the RAL chart or whatever it is that they use. To dig slightly deeper into this article, which relates to quite a lot of the comments we've seen and to quite a lot of the online stuff, is actually how the various alleged watch media has dealt with this particular story. I think it's fair to say that we have dealt with this pretty head on and been quite straightforward. And I think that's what we're known for at aBlogtoWatch. I think others, it's maybe showing up that, yeah, they're kind of criticizing with one arm at the same time as saying, please don't disinvite us from X, Y, and Z event. How do you think this particular story has reflected on the watch media itself, Ariel?
My particular feeling is, hey, Patek, if you want our positive attention, you need to earn it. I very much believe in us being a voice of the community. I'd like to think that we represent the thoughts and feelings and opinions that other people have. And when I don't feel great about the brand, I recognize that the brand needs to do something about that, right? I tend to not be the only one. So for me, I'm not asking for Patek to like us. I'm saying, Patek, the only relationship we're going to have is if you actually care what we think about you, rather than whatever attitude you have right now. So I think a lot of other media is confused by this. They don't take that approach. They don't look at it as directly as that. There is a huge fear of missing out. There can be some very nice trips and dinners and little gifts and things like that that people get, and that all goes away if you dare say the wrong thing. But I've been down this road long enough to know that road of just being a yes person doesn't lead you anywhere. You end up being close but powerless, and they don't really give you anything other than let you write about their stuff and help make them look good, even though they ultimately don't do very much for you. I don't feel that gives our audience much value. We're not reporting anything. You're not getting our opinion. Brands like Patek want to stifle our opinion, which is the exact opposite of what aBlogtoWatch is trying to do. So I think a lot of other media doesn't look at it as explicitly as us, but is now realizing, like, should we have been so glowingly positive about Patek for so long without actually really liking it? I mean, that's a really common conversation. David, you can remember from Basel Worlds of Past, where, everyone runs in, looks at Rolex and Patek second. And many people are like, that Patek wasn't really that nice, was it? Like, I'm not saying they never say that about Rolex and stuff as well, but like, it's been this common thing. No one's like, man, I can't wait to get that. It's been this huge detachment from regular people and Patek for a long, long time.
Very interesting stuff. Return back for a moment to the trips. It's interesting. I had this discussion in the comment section probably like 8 years ago or something like that, where it was like, I went on this trip and, you had to include the trip because somehow it was related to the topic of the watch or whatever it was. I don't know. And someone implied that, you're going to be positive about something because you get to go on these nice trips. And my answer to this 8 years ago was that these trips and, to fly and to stay in a nice hotel or whatever, is fun for the first time or amazing for the first time, and then for the second time you're still not going to write anything nicer about a freaking watch just because you're there, but it's cool. For the 20th time, as spoiled as it may sound, it's a place other than home, other than your friends, other than your family. It's work. Once you have to like leave and travel somewhere, sure, it's much nicer to go to a nice hotel than a bad hotel, but at the same time, at the very end of the day, after all these years and stuff, it's still work. You go there, you're not necessarily where you want to be. I mean, sure, if you're a hotel enthusiast, then you will have a great time or something like that, but other than that,
For the 16 hours you get to spend in your room, including sleep time.
I think though what those trips do that is they help provide additional context. All of us are looking at the Cubitus saying we don't love it. But I also want to underscore the fact that Patek had no interaction with us to help explain what this was, why they were doing it, or anything like that. With I think this kind of underscores why watch media is important. No brand can fully tell a whole story, and I think it's important for when a brand might have something that might not resonate with everything or might be a bit Marmite. I think it's important for the storytelling side to really be there and to be able to back it up. And like I can't even speak to this in an informed manner because Patek Philippe has done absolutely nothing to communicate this to us as media. So all I can do is look at it at face value like everyone else, say
We got
this
their
just
PDFs.
we did. And
They sent us PDFs, sir.
okay, you're right. They sent us PDFs at roughly the same time they sent it to everyone else. This wasn't something like some brands are like, we're doing this thing. Do you want to interview the designer or the CEO? Because we know this is different and we want to have this. Like they didn't do anything with any watch media that wasn't already in their pocket to try to give this additional context. And, without that, some of these trips do serve a purpose, and it's not necessarily to buy our goodwill, but it's to like say, we need a long form version to explain why we did this and why this is important to us. And sometimes the trip serves as a way to give that additional context. So when you write about the watch, you can offer some additional insight into why this is even happening in the first place. We didn't even get, it wasn't an interview, it wasn't a meeting, it wasn't anything. There was nothing for this Patek release. So maybe there was something there, but like, if there was, it wasn't communicated to us. And for other brands out there, this is a good example of why you probably should work with watch media in a collaborative manner, because if you think it's just going to speak for itself, clearly for one of the most prestigious brands in the world, this isn't the case. It doesn't speak for itself. So, if you think an explanation might be warranted, you as the brand probably aren't the best one to give that full explanation, or people might not want to listen to your explanation. So talk to other people and maybe it might be received better, but I can't say anything in defense of it because nothing to the contrary was communicated to any of us. So it is what it is, and that's kind of all we can accept it as.
Yeah, I mean, those that were invited to the pre-release, and apologies if I name you incorrectly, but I believe it would have been Rob Report, GQ, Esquire, whatever the magazine was that broke the story early.
Bastions of critical opinion.
Exactly. Do you think this is this demonstrating a good example of actually, guys, it's no use just inviting folk that are not specialists in terms of content. Okay, the people writing individual articles for these magazines might be specialists, but you really need to consider specialist watch media, because if you don't explain it to us, we'll start trying to explain it to ourselves, and that's the way the cards are going to land.
I don't think that's true. I don't think we're explaining it to ourselves. I think we do our diligence. We look at the product very closely. We look at their presentation. We look up interviews that they give to other people. I don't think it's just that.
I guess what I mean is that we're going to put this. We're going to make the story. If you don't tell us what your actual story is or how you got here, then we're just going to make us the best assumptions we can, as you say, by looking at everything that surrounds it. You've not told us a product story, so all we can do is look at the actual product and judge it purely on what we see with no context that you care to provide that may influence us one way or other, and think, right, now I understand. Perhaps Thierry Stern had a nice Volkswagen Beetle and crashed it, and it went from being all round to having a big square top on it. And I was inspired by that to take the edges off of curves or something. Maybe that, as opposed to just coming up with this thing that looks like an Aquanaut or a Nautilus being run over by a steamroller.
I haven't read the coverage that those publications mentioned, and there's some really fine people that work for some of those publications. What I can say about their coverage is it rarely veers into what we would call opinion, let alone critique or analysis. What they do is they merely explain. And the reason they get invited is because Patek Philippe knows that they will take the story which is given to them and explain that story to their audience, complete with all the little nuances that Patek wants. And any type of criticism will be so small, it will be just, completely impossible to see. Maybe they'll give some, they'll have some thoughts and make some comments of the event itself, but it's highly predictable content. Again, I'm guessing none of their own images. And so I think it's just that simple. I wouldn't blame the writers. It's just, this is very predictable, content, a couple of BS quotes, couple of this and that, but no real opinion. Again, I haven't read it all, but I that's what I suspect.
Literally, Esquire's title to the article from the launch is Patek Philippe's new Cubitus watch explained, not commented on. I mean, good journalism. It opens up with, on Thursday morning, the world's watch media was flown en masse to Munich. Now, I would have thought we at least qualified as in the top tier of world's watch media. Were any of us flown to Munich?
I mean, that's a gross exaggeration. I mean, I think Patek was very proud of how few people they actually brought out. So if this person thinks if they think that that's the world's watch media, I don't think they themselves are in watch media.
Yeah, I don't think they understand. Anyway, right. Well, let's. David, any comments? You presumably, as well as the comments that were on the article, might have received one or two WhatsApp or text messages about the coverage. Anything you care to share?
Well, nothing I would care to share, but there's been an influx of messages, which is interesting to see. From
anyone that works from Patek? Do Patek need to be running some sort of covert op to go?
Oh, we know they know about it. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah, nothing I can report. Yeah, but it's one last thing on the watch media thing. It's and Patek's and other brands' approach to this, I think, is ultimately they are not just approaching media, but they are approaching its audience as well. We very clearly have a certain type of audience, as big as it may be, and as diverse and versatile it may be from every corner of the world. It still is the sort of person that I imagine to be very much into watches. Maybe it's their first day reading about watches, but they are into it, or maybe it's their 15th year into watches or 30th year. And once you start to ignore that sort of audience, it's not as though they will stop caring. I mean, after a while, maybe, but as long as we cover something, chances are that they will read it and they will hear about it and make up their own minds. And why would you not want to talk to them? Why would you just, invite, not just one type of media, but, a certain type of media that is a little bit more about presenting the brand's message straight on without, too much of an influence on actual critical thinking and
easy
and
answer, David.
presentation.
Patek Philippe hates opinions. It hates our opinions. It hates customers who have opinions. If you have an opinion, you're not welcome. If you don't, come on in. That's it. It's very simple. They just hate opinion.
Well, how long can you get away with that is the question.
Well, until the next generation. At least that
long. Do we think, I mean, brands do rise and fall. Is this going to have any real long-term impact on Patek? Is this the slow chipping away that's going to result in Patek?
There's this idea in the market right now. Audemars Piguet is, I think, another one in a different way is doing this. And they think that we can be a watch brand without existing in the watch industry. We don't need to go to watch industry events. We don't have to price ourselves like the other ones. We'll be a watch brand, but we refuse to associate with all the other things. And then they somehow come crawling back to a trade show or something like that eventually. But I think Patek is trying to go that way of saying, like, we'll just make our own rules. We got our own Patek Philippe seal. We got our own name for things. We'll just pretend like we're not.
We
part
have
of
our
this, and
own depth rating of
they have their own
redefining
depth rating.
30 meters. Yes. Well, I mean, watch media is kind of a diverse term because there's sites like ours that we only write about watches. If it doesn't tell the time, we don't really write about it. Then there's the kind of in-betweens that are like watch centric, but then they write about like weird lifestyle stuff like air-cooled Porsches. And then you have like the Esquires, which like are watch adjacent. That like Esquire is not a watch publication, nor is Rob Report, nor is Gear Patrol. The watches are one facet of a very multifaceted type of publication. And I think some of it may be reflective of where Patek Philippe envisions themselves as a company, where they're not just trying to be a watch brand, they're trying to be something that transcends just the watch media. And so that's why, if you look at the number of watch specific media versus media that was there, it's largely the non-watch specific media that's there. And, those are the ones that are going to have less discerning opinions inherently, because their job is to more present what this is to the widespread viewership rather than a critical assessment of the latest entry to the catalog.
So what do we think will be the next thing that Patek try to reinvent now that they've reinvented the seal, water ratings?
Round Nautilus.
Round Nautilus.
I don't know. I think the answer is stop giving these people so much attention.
And on that note, we will move on. We welcome Guy to the recording. If you're watching live, get to enjoy Guy's nice face. Good morning, Guy. How are you?
Good morning, everybody.
Just before we move on, we had this from Breaking News Beat. Citizen has those watch lamp things. Only seen them on the secondary market, but there is expensive and then AF. I'm not quite sure what that means. So there you go.
I think both Ripley and I know what that means, and I'm afraid we can't say it.
That wasn't an invitation to tell me.
That new bit of tech, though, Rick, where you can get the comment on the screen. I'm very impressed.
Look at me learning how it works. Look, I can even, for those that are watching live on video, I can now even show the WhatsApp number. Look at that.
Wow.
Oh, I don't see the little musical notes next to it to imply that there's
no
a
musical notes. No, I can make it slightly larger or I can make it slightly smaller. There you go.
Oh, the technology.
Can you make it bounce around a little bit? Ooh.
No, bouncing around's not happening. But there we go.
There's no bagpipe emoji to go with it.
There's no bagpipe emoji. That's next. You've got to take these things in stages. It's like developing a watch. You start off with black and white and small, and then you change the size and you introduce new colorways, then you add musical chimes. It's just
I'm going to take our number.
Make it square.
I'm going to take our number and a case of beer and give it to a friend who produces music and say the only brief is bagpipes. Obligatory bagpipes. Come up with a jingle. Like what you played was something that I wouldn't even want at a funeral the last time, Rick. We need something a little bit more upbeat than that.
Can we say bagpipes optional to the musician? I'm just saying.
That's right. Music or no music. Right, we're not going to go straight into Hit Miss Maybe. We're going to have a look at this, which was done by Mike at the team. Wait a minute. New old stock has entered the horological mire. This is basically an argument, or not an argument, it's some facts that certain brands may now be presenting what we call new old stock movements that are actually not that old, not that much, and plenty of stock. Experiences of this new old stock, give us a definition, David, Ripley, Ariel, even Guy.
Definitely not me.
I'll let David start with this one. This sounds like a David topic, and then I'll chime in.
New old stock. I mean, it's stuff that's been on the shelf for way too long, and it's basically pristine, brand new condition that's no one touched or did anything to. It's just an old watch that's still unsold most of the time, or maybe it was sold but it's still unworn completely.
Should it be a thing? Like, should new old stock be a thing, or is it complete marketing to coin a phrase?
I love it.
BS.
No, if it's an actual new old stock thing, it's a little time capsule. I absolutely adore those watches. I think you can find some really cool stuff.
Let's say something important about new old stock. I don't think the term should necessarily be applied to movements as often, because it really implies a fully made product that was made a long time ago. So it's vintage, but that no one bought it and used it. So like a pair of shoes made in 1970 that nobody wore is new old stock because it's not new, but no one actually used it. So it applies to watches, and this happens a lot where someone will discover a bunch of watches from decades ago that never sold. The practice that Mike is talking about, which I think he's understandably, concerned about, is when brands try to sex up the movements by saying, "Oh, we didn't just buy a new movement. You like that vintage thing? Well, we found old movements that weren't used, and now we're using them, and maybe that's a justification of charging more because it's more exclusive." The reality is these movements are usually far worse than today's movements. Sometimes they can be refurbished and made to look really, really pretty. But I would rather have a better new movement than one of these things. So it can be exciting if the movements have a story, if there's no way of making them. But this is like highly, highly case specific. And to me, is just part of this larger umbrella of like vintage zeal and enthusiasm that could be cool, but oftentimes it's just another marketing gimmick.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I thought new old stock was like that, like 80-year-old jeweler that died, and somebody went into the store, and in the back they found this stuff that hasn't been sold for
That's
years.
called a holdup because you just murdered him. Okay.
Well, yeah, there is that, but it's still new old stock after the murder.
I mean, what is the difference between new old stock and recycling? Guy, that should be your area of expertise.
No, for me, I always thought it was a product. I always thought new old stock is like, this is a box, like a dusty box, and you open it, and it happens to be something that a guy, like a retailer, bought in 1970, forgot to sell and left on the shelf.
That's usually where it comes from.
Touched.
Brands sometimes can also hoard it and not sell it. So it can come from different places, but yeah.
I mean, that becomes in the BS, I think.
What David mentioned is, I think, where new old stock adds value, where it becomes a time capsule, and it's like, a 70s Rolex fully stickered, never worn. The guy bought it, threw it in a safe or whatever, or it was at this retailer and the guy cycled it out when the new models arrived with sapphire crystals, and it just sat there. I love it when it's a time capsule. I think that can add a lot of value, but I think new old stock is a term that gets so, when it's a fully put together product that's just been sitting, it's a wonderful time capsule. When you're talking about a movement that's fitted to a contemporary watch, what this effectively is a movement with an old archaic design that's been taken apart and resurfaced, because at this point the lubricants will have been so far past their life. It's, you need to service it, so the movement gets re-put back together, and so all you have is an outdated design of a movement that's been freshly serviced and put back together, put inside a watch, probably playing some vintage angle. And I think that's where it kind of gets a bit where it's just trying to sex up, like Ariel said, and not a sexy design to begin with. When these things surface on the secondary market, like David mentioned, it's a totally different purchase. But when the term is used by a brand directly selling a watch, they didn't just find these things and are now selling them to the public. It's usually the description of one part, a dial, a movement, etc. And that's a case, a lump of steel. And I think that's where it sort of falls short, where I think that's where Mike takes the issue. It went from me being something that David had mentioned, a time capsule, to something Ariel mentioned, where it's, a very obvious ploy by a brand to try to squeeze some extra dollars out of a buyer for using something that they didn't already use, basically, unused inventory.
Any further comments? Would you ever be inclined to buy a new old stock watch, like as a preference?
I did. I gave my dad a 16233 date chest for his 75th birthday. It was literally dead stock. It was purchased, gifted to someone. That person never wore it. It sat in a safe deposit box so long the mainspring broke. I got it, serviced it. It was a stickered Rolex from the late 80s. Gave it to him for his 75th because that's would have been the watch he would have bought for himself had he not bought my mom a Rolex instead in that era. So, on the secondary market, it's cool. You get to step back in time and give something to someone, or get something for yourself that you would have never otherwise had the opportunity to purchase. I wasn't born in the late 80s. I was born a few years thereafter. So, this wasn't anything I could have ever gotten for him. Would I ever pay this for an old movement in a new watch? Absolutely not. Give me the new, better tech if I'm buying a new watch.
There was last year, I don't know if you guys saw it, and I'm trying to Google it, and it might have been someone called Fleury, but they were taking old Lemania 2310 movements and putting them into new watches. They didn't call it New Old, but that was quite a cool project because it was like heroing a really important
I
movement.
reviewed
That was
watches
really cool.
like that. It's a fun concept, but it's really dependent on the whole execution of the story. You got to find the right enthusiast. It's just likes how it all goes together. But I think too often it becomes more like a gimmick. Like the ones that are sort of a cool story and a good price are now overshadowed by like, you just bought like old movements for less than new ones, but now you want to charge more as though there's something that should be special about those. So there can be, I mean, I remember there was Grebe and Benzinger was this wonderful duo that they took old like Patek pocket watch movements and they cut them up and they decorated them and then they put it in a wristwatch and they did like crazy stuff with it. It was like amazing. And there are a lot of examples of people taking old movements and making them really cool by putting them in fundamentally new watch. I wouldn't use the word new old stock anywhere near that, right? That's just not the right term at all. But from an artistic exercise, it can be really, really cool. But it's very, very niche, and each of these takes a lot of work. This is an artisanal thing. I wouldn't get a low cost one of these because I don't want a budget old movement that has been just serviced, because I mean, they don't hack. You turn the crown and the seconds hand goes all over the place. They don't have a lot of power reserve. There's a lot of modern materials that aren't used. Like some of them are fine, but honestly, I would take a modern like Salida SW200 over like the vast majority of those.
Okay, well, something for everyone to consider. Please go and check out the article at aBlogtoWatch.com and you can give us your reaction. We're now going to move on to Hit Miss Maybe, well, actually, it's the only wristwatch game that we know of being played regularly by anybody. So obviously, it's the greatest wristwatch game that there is. We haven't actually done a full Hit Miss Maybe on the Patek Philippe Cubitus, so we are going to do that just for old time's sakes, and maybe to just close our commentary on this blooming watch. But before we get there, we'll do our usual and find out where everybody is and what they're wearing. Ariel, what have you got on the wrist this week?
I am wearing Casio's MRG B2100, and I'm trying to damage it, right? Because it's like really fancy titanium alloys, two of them. The bezel is called Cobarian, which doesn't sound like it's actually from our world. It's the DLC one, and I'm trying to scratch something off, and it's really durable. I've scratched it on tables and things like that. It's doing good. I pointed out earlier that it did automatically adjust for daylight savings time, and it's solar, and it has no digital element, as few hands as Casio can possibly muster. And of course, the aBlogtoWatch Casio is
repping the brand.
Yes.
Is it called? I always thought it was called Mr. G.
MRG? Yeah, that's Mr. G.
Mr. G is his father.
I just always read it as Mr. G. I never thought of it as MRG.
No. It's like aluminum and aluminium. In the States, they're all MRG, and in the UK, it's all Mr. G.
No.
Weird.
Casio says MRG, but then once in a while, you'll see like in text a Mr. G. But I've heard someone at Casio say Mr. G like twice.
Everyone in the UK I know says Mr. G when they're talking about it. It must be a politeness thing. It's a class thing, clearly, Guy.
I think the people at Casio would probably know.
We don't care. Ripley, where are you? What brands are you repping today in your vast closet of watch gear?
Well, I'm in Los Angeles. I think that's apparent by the wall. Got Watch Crunch on the hat. Bob's watch is on the slippers.
Oh, we've got footwear. We've been looking for footwear.
aBlogtoWatch shirt, the Watch Idiot Savant in black and yellow. Yes, sir. And then watches, I am wearing my Garmin. I've got an upcoming 33-mile bike ride with Tudor this week, so we're getting ourselves in shape for that. As I mentioned, the Mondaine Stop-to-Go is right here. But Guy's on the podcast, so what's up, Guy? Just finished the review of the D-Trash. So
there we go. That's a proper watch.
Oh yeah,
that looks beautiful. At least you got the bezel to 12 o'clock now. You didn't in the picture.
The what?
You got the bezel the right way around.
Well, I was using it to time my dog's walk, so that's why it was a bit off kilter. I had set it when I left the house. I took a wrist shot while he was using the restroom shortly down the street, and what you'd saw was the elapsed time of a few minutes.
That's good.
Proves he's using it, guy.
Tool watch,
Everyone's
yes.
using it for time, lots of things.
David, where are you? What you wearing?
I'm in my office, and I still don't wear a watch that often here at home, but it's the Darren Dream from Awake. I quite like this cartoon dial that shines, that's luminescent, and it has the little indices floating all over it. So it's just very cool. I've very rarely seen an installation of indices that's just blown all over the dial. Very, very nice. I quite like this. It's an enjoyable watch for sure.
Cool. Guy, we've already seen a picture of a D-Trash, so tell us what else you've got in your collection, unless you happen to not be wearing one of your own watches.
Well, I've actually got a bit of a quandary because I've been invited to an IWC watchmaking event, and I don't know if I should wear. I've got an IWC chronograph, bronze chronograph. I know you hate bronze, and I don't know if I should wear my watches or an IWC for the event.
God gave you 2 wrists for a reason. Put one on each and go forth and conquer.
Just have a D-Trash arm and then all the rest on my other arm.
Yes. Channel your inner Hayek. Good stuff. I'm in Scotland wearing a Panerai, so nothing new there then. Right, let's start off and give an actual judgment now that we've seen all the reviews, all the controversy on the Patek Cubitus. First,
and I saw it hands-on too.
And seen it hands-on in the last 25 years. Has it been worth the wait? Well, let's take, I don't know, try and set aside. Well, I don't know. You can judge it however you like. If you want to be influenced in your judgment by Mr. Stern, or you just want to vote on the basis of whether you think it's going to be a financial success for the brand, entirely up to you. So is it a hit, a miss, or maybe? On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, go. Maybe, and 3 misses. Ariel, why are you giving it a maybe?
I mean, look, it's going to be relatively comfortable and it's going to be cool in a sort of like, oh, that's that thing everyone's talking about. So I can see a real enjoyment out of wearing it. It's not going to be terribly made or anything like that. I would never spend the money on it. Like, never. I don't care how much money I have. Just on principle, I think it's too much money. So maybe it goes into the fact of like, would I be a consumer? No. Would I wear it? Yeah. Times I look at it, it doesn't offend me. Certain times I look at it, I was like, why did they do that? I'm not a huge fan of the design, though I'm not opposed to it in general, because I think it'll sort of like, again, I'm just someone that likes new designs. I'm never that type of person who's like, it doesn't immediately appeal to me. The asymmetric one, yeah, I don't think I could handle that. You know, I would be silly, just go for like the 2-tone one, like the one that like no one would think about wearing. But again, maybe in the sense that like if you gave me one, yeah, I'd wear it once in a while, and I'm not offended by it, but I'm definitely not excited. Let's put it that way.
I know. I think I give it maybe because I actually like the asymmetrical one. Bizarrely, I think. Yeah, I don't know why. I can't explain it, so I'm not going to bother trying. Ripley, you give it a miss.
Yeah, well, Rick, if you like the asymmetrical one, we can just gift you a snow globe for Christmas, and that will totally satisfy your urge for that. I gave it a miss.
Snow globe.
Yeah, I'd actually like that quite a bit. I gave it a miss. So in a vacuum, it's not a bad watch. If you gave me one, I'd wear it, like Ariel said, happily. If for no other reason than for people to be like, wait, did you really? I'd be like, no, it was a gift. And like, from who? I'd be like, the brand. So I mean, I would wear it. It's in a vacuum. It's not a bad watch, but I think this watch is inseparable from just what it is in context of Patek. And so I have to give it a miss. It's the weird misshapen brother to the Nautilus. It's now been further tainted by what's been kind of an unmeasured response from the brand as far as the criticism. And even if you threw in the cufflinks, I wouldn't be spending my own money on it because it's just really, really expensive for what effectively equates to a time and date watch. And even more so if you want the complications. So, I have to give it a miss just because I can't. It is Patek. I can't view it outside the context of the brand. But if you put a different brand's name on the dial and gave it to me, I think I'd be quite happy with it. Although I couldn't see it being my everyday piece. No, regardless.
David, you gave it a miss on reflection.
Yeah, I mean it's well documented on this podcast that I'm not a fan of this design and this approach. So yeah, it's an easy miss, I think.
An easy miss, Guy. An easy miss for you, or a bit of consideration?
Oh, I mean, it's an easy miss, but for quite a few, like, did you call it the hinge the other day when I was listing the bit on the left? The hinge, it's way too big, and actually, I just think it's bad design. Basically, I know it would be comfortable, it would be nice. I saw the Benjamin James kind of version, who kind of lucked out at the weekend, and managed to launch a very similar looking watch with a green dial, and that's 500 quid, and it's a lot nicer. And I think if you want a square watch, if you want a nice looking good brand square watch, you put this next to a Santos, and the Santos is just leagues and leagues above. I do think there's something quite cool about the two-tone, that's what Ariel said, but it's just badly done, really. And I think also, if you're going to like spend ages and come out, like everyone's like, oh, you've got to do something new, you've got to do something new. This isn't new. It's just a vaguely different shape of something that no one can buy anyway because there's massive wait lists on. So what's the point?
And it's not just about new. It's not like it just has to be new. It also has to be good. It's so strange.
Yeah.
So many comments saying, well, they did something new. Why aren't you happy? It's not like do a new movie or whatever and then people just go and praise it because it's a new movie. It also has to be good, but
did you see the video of someone made this in Photoshop from a Nautilus? Apparently it's 3 moves in Photoshop to go from a Nautilus to this.
Yeah, we hate the low effort. That's what we don't like. Like your Patek, you charge a giant premium. Can't you put in giant effort like your, what was it, their advanced lab, those weird watches they do that are expensive and have like some open dials? Like those aren't very pretty either, but at least it looks like they put a bunch of effort into it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe that's it. Maybe Thierry Stern is just learning to use Photoshop, and as we discussed earlier, that's how he managed to create 20 new designs. It was just using the curve tool on Photoshop, So imagine what else he's come up with in his other.
Honestly, as
he discovered generative AI and he's having fun. He's like, wait a minute, I found something.
Yeah.
Nautilus in square shape. Whoa, that looks easy enough.
I think we'll try that after the show as to whether generative AI can.
Can we recreate it? Can we find the exact command?
Yeah, I think I'll have a go at that afterwards. Anyway, right. So that is it. It's not. I hope it's the final word, but it probably won't be. Mainly because there'll be 3 different colorways and different materials coming any day now. One would.
Oh, and they'll sell like loads and loads of them, and everyone they'll be like, it's a massive success.
I wonder if they will. I wonder if us lowly geek watch critiquers have broken through the media barrier into kind of in the more general world, that people who would be customers of this are now, the edge is being taken off ever so slightly. They're going, wait a minute, people really don't like this watch. And
I don't. So a friend of mine's been offered one by his AD, and he just said, well, I'm going to buy it because you get it when the first year of production is it's worth buying, and to become a new old find in
become new old stock in 2 years to be able to take the movement out of it and put it in something else.
I've heard from a lot of people exactly that same story, that if you have a relationship with the dealer's reaching out to sell them. So I know that they're playing this whole thing about waiting lists or whatever, but multiple people I've known have said, I've been offered one of these at retail price. That does not speak to me of Moonswatch success.
Good stuff. Well, let's go to something completely different. Ariel, new release, Greubel Forsey Nano Foudroyante EWT watch. What do all those words mean? Greubel Forsey, I know. Nano Foudroyante EWT watch. Do explain.
Yeah. So EWT is a new term from Greubel Forsey. At least I haven't seen it before. It stands for experimental watch technology. And that sort of, I think, also translates into don't have too much expectations for what this thing actually does.
This might break.
The first thing is, I guess they're trying to make a small, simple watch. Someone said, "Hey guys, your watches are too big and too complicated looking." And you know what? I can see that about certain Greubel Forseys. We're talking about watches until recently were like, I don't know, 45, 46 millimeters wide. They had the tumor. Remember that? And that wasn't everyone's taste. I thought some of them were cool, but like, okay, so for a long time they said make something smaller. What they did is they created something which is weird. So a Foudroyante is essentially born from chronographs and allows you to have a more precise measurement of time. So when you stop the chronograph, rather than seeing it's 3 seconds, you can see that it's 3.1 seconds. And this one goes down to 1/6 of a second because it's a 3 hertz. If it's a 4 hertz, you can do 1/8 of a second. If it's a 5 hertz, you can do 1/10 of a second, and so forth. The problem here is that even though this movement has a 60-minute chronograph, the Foudroyante is completely detached from it and sits on top of the tourbillon. It's their first flying tourbillon. I didn't know it was their first flying tourbillon, but it is their first flying tourbillon, which means there's no bridge on it. And this has been done in some other watches, but it's geared such that even though it's turning on the tourbillon cage in sort of in this asymmetric position on the side, it always looks upright, right? So this is just a gearing trick. And what you would see, even if the chronograph isn't running, is all these spinning hands. You got the tourbillon spinning it once each 60 seconds. Then you have the Foudroyante hand going really, really fast. Now, they claim that this Foudroyante is almost twice as small as the next smallest Foudroyante, which is where the Nano part comes from. And they also say that, like, oh, it's very exciting because it uses less power. But, and maybe this is because the movement's so small, the entire watch only has a power reserve of 24 hours. So it's weird that the Foudroyante operates all the time, not related, it's not connected to the chronograph. That's why it uses so much power. It's just to sort of like look animated and fun. And then to sort of explain all that, they're like, yeah, but it's experimental. Okay, it's still 465,000 Swiss francs. And that's the Greubel Forsey Nano Foudroyante EWT.
Excellent. Well, let's give it a vote on a count of 3. Is it a hit, a miss, or a maybe? 1, 2, 3, go. Miss, maybe, maybes, misses. No hits. Ariel, you gave it a maybe in conclusion.
I mean, look, it's going to be well finished. Greubel Forsey always has that. It's going to have a lot of twirly spinny things, and I love twirly spinny things. You know, and it would be cool, but similar with the Patek, I would never buy it. Don't have that kind of money, and if I did, I wouldn't be buying an EWT. So like cool in principle, not amazingly pretty. It's supposed to be simple by design. There's some buyer out there for it. But it looks harder to sell than the Biver watches. And the Biver watches are cool, but it's sort of like simple, but also super expensive. And I guess there's a market for that. But again, they're making 11 pieces. Maybe they have it. Maybe I just wonder if the next time around it's still going to say EWT. Or are they going to exit that part of the phase and, I don't know, give it more power reserve?
David?
I gave it a maybe just simply because it's not the Greubel Forsey I would want. And, you know, when I first saw the watch itself, I was like, oh, great, finally a relatively affordable Greubel Forsey. This must not be more than $100,000. And then it's over 400. Obviously, it has to have some crazy complications and it will be beautifully finished and all the rest of it internally. So I've been a long-term fan of Greubel Forsey for its complications and its executions. It's just not even in the top 5 of their watches that I would get.
Guy, do you have a favourite Greubel Forsey?
I think I am not enough of a watch geek to appreciate why this is a £400,000 watch. I think I just don't get it.
Or maybe you're too much of a watch geek.
Or maybe I'm just too tight to even consider. I think a small house would be a better investment than a watch.
We
that
lack
has
those
a
spare
24 hour.
billions.
Life's just not been fair.
Yeah, I don't. I gave it a miss because I feel like I'm like on another planet. I was saying the other day, like, I think one of the consequences of coming on this podcast is I used to think a £15,000 watch was expensive, and I was saying the other day that I thought a Freak was really good value at 26, and now I'm looking at like 400 for this, and I'm like, my mind's a bit blown.
Yeah, it's a phase we all go through. Suddenly, you think, 300 quid for a watch? What are you talking about? That's really expensive. And then eventually you reach a stage in life. Yeah, if I had a spare $500,000, of course, this is what I'd prioritize to buy. Ripley.
I said it's a maybe. I'm a massive fan of Greubel Forsey. They're probably one of my favorite manufacturers. Everything they do is objectively lovely, like beautifully finished, expertly crafted, cool complications. But like David said, this is not within my top 5 Greubel Forsey to own. If I did have, unearthed that briefcase full of the spare millions that I had just forgot I had and buried while drunk one evening or something like that, this isn't the one I'd be getting. When I want a Greubel Forsey, I want all the bells and whistles, and I want it to look that way. I want the one with the whole Magna Carta or whatever the hell they've got there engraved around the plates. Like, I want all of the crazy stuff. That's, I think, where Greubel Forsey's best. They only make incredibly cool watches, and this almost seems a little too reserved without being so well considered that it's forgiving, that you can forgive it for not having all the cool stuff. But yeah, it's like $500,000 US. I'm certainly not a buyer for it, but if I was, I'd be getting just a different Greubel Forsey.
Mm-hmm. Right, well, I'm now going to ruin it. Nobody gave it a hit, so I'm not really ruining it for you. But you will see on this particular image, if you're tuned into aBlogtoWatch Weekly Live or the main aBlogtoWatch channel later in the week, you will see that the arrow that is the running tourbillon, and it goes round once every 60 seconds, is currently at the tourbillon placed at about 5 past. You will see that the running seconds, which is on the bottom left, has its own individual dial, is at about 35 past. And if I switch to the Greubel Forsey YouTube channel and stop sharing...
now I'm getting curious, because I was also wondering, I was like, do these tell different seconds?
Yeah, so one is... this is the problem. So here is the great big... let me get it like that, and I'll play this video. It has Greubel Forsey's
you had it on the exact
YouTube
spot
channel.
too. Nice and prepared.
Yeah.
Can we just take a moment to just appreciate the fact that hand had that little wee running seconds hand has a nice domed cap over the center? Like, this is exactly what I'm talking about. This holds up so well under macro. This is a beautiful watch.
It doesn't line up though. It doesn't line up with the marker.
It doesn't. I was going to say that it looks. We'll see from the video as to whether this is a direct.
It's not a ticking hand. It's not a ticking hand or anything.
No. Just watch.
Okay,
just watch.
We're waiting.
This is Greubel Forsey's YouTube channel. This video has only had 18 views, most of which I think have been me.
If everybody bought one, they'd be sold out.
every viewer. So what? Now it's only a short clip within a bigger video, so watch the discordant way in which the running seconds hand ticks at a completely different location than the tourbillon running seconds. So there you go. You can see the little red arrow is moving around. The little red arrow on the tourbillon's currently at 25 past, while the running second is at 5.2. That's just not right. Why are those two things not lined up?
It actually appears to be the exact opposite. So it looks like it's exactly weird. 30 seconds off.
Yeah, so I don't know. Why would you do that? Why would you do that?
The other thing is,
that's crazy.
I think if you're going to look at the design, there's a random red 20, and the 15-minute marker is like totally weird. I thought it was the date at first. I thought it was a sideways date.
If there isn't a random red something, it's not a watch. Come on.
But there's also a random red thing at the top. I think this is also filmed from a slightly strange angle. It's not filmed directly top down. So some stuff looks like it doesn't line up.
Is this filmed or is it? I think this might be CGI, no?
No, this is definitely. I would say this is
that's
definitely no. This is the real thing. So go and check out the Greubel Forsey video and become the 20th viewer of this video and see if it makes
Let's
any more
embed
sense
that in
to
our
you.
article
If it does.
now that we've seen this video, just so people can admire the weird random red.
The weirdness. Anyway, right, that's it from Greubel Forsey. We will now do a watch release that seems to have completely vanished almost after it's been launched. And I thought when I first saw, oh, this is going to be all the chat for the week, but in fact, it's got we've covered it. A couple of other people have covered it, but it doesn't seem to have really hit the zeitgeist for some reason. I thought it would. David, you reviewed or covered the new release of the Tudor Pelagos FXD GMT Zulu time watch. What is Zulu time in this world of time zone changes?
It's military time. It's basically a reference time that you can, just look at wherever you are in the world. It removes the chance of confusion when somebody says, okay, we attack at 5 p.m. Okay, but 5 p.m. where is it? Like which time zone? So that's why it's Zulu time. You look at Zulu time and it's 5 p.m. for everybody who's checking Zulu time. So it's a fancy way of saying it's basically a GMT. So you can fantasize about flying somewhere over the Gulf and in a whatever helicopter of your choosing and saying, oh, Zulu time, let's have a beer at 6 p.m. Zulu time. basically that's the sole function there.
So I'm right in saying that Zulu time is like it's a nothing burger. It's just whatever time you set it at on this watch. There's not like a fifth hand which shows Zulu time. It's just
not going to explode if you set it to another time zone.
No, it's like GMT. It's like GMT. It's just like a more mil-spec version of saying GMT. It's like the universal coordinated time that, but GMT, UTC, we got other versions. You can say Zulu time, but it all kind of
I like that they weren't
thing.
ballsy enough to just take GMT off the dial. Like just call it the Zulu time. Like, but they could do it.
Does Rolex own that? Is Rolex getting protective over that with the master? They are the master of the GMT. This would have to be an inferior GMT because Rolex already has the master
GMT
version.
doesn't even indicate the complication. It's just a term that we've used to associate with these watches. You don't have to use the
That's
term
kind
GMT.
of my point.
It does, because what you do is you set the regular hour hand to your local time and you set the GMT hand to Zulu time. So this way you know where you are and what time it is, but you also can read Zulu time easily.
What I'm saying is they could have just called it the Pelagos Zulu and have been cooler.
Yeah, if it was real Zulu time, you wouldn't be able to change the hand. Like it would just be that's the universal time, and it would come preloaded as to what universal time was, and you wouldn't be able to change it.
I'm just so sick of the term GMT. Okay, I know it's very important to people in the United Kingdom. I get it. But enough of the GMT. I've heard it so many times.
We lost an empire. At least give us GMT.
But Zulu time and GMT are exactly the same. Like Zulu time is GMT.
Yes, that's why
it's not like another separate military.
Yeah, it's just like mil-spec version. It's like saying 1400 instead of 2 p.m. you just made it sound cooler.
I've put the video from Greubel Forsey in the YouTube chat, just in case folk want to go there to quickly go to the link. Okay, let's give this some judgment. We'll stop sharing the screen. Is it a hit, a miss, or a maybe? 1, 2, 3, go. Yeah, I'm giving it a maybe just because of the whole Zulu GMT time. I think it should be an unsettable hand. It should just be, it should come, and that's just the time it is. It's Zulu time.
Rick, that basically is what it is. It's a mechanical watch, so it can't just stay running indefinitely. You set the red hand, the GMT hand, to Zulu time. You set your local one to your local time, and that's effectively what how it's supposed to function. It doesn't come preset because it has stopped during transit. It's got a power reserve of 70 hours, but like that's exactly how you're supposed to use it.
If it was a true military watch, they would be able to deliver it to you with military accuracy within the 70-hour power reserve, preset to GMT, and you wouldn't be able to change it. And it'd be like the Breitling emergency. Every time it came and it was running short of battery, someone would come and sort it out for you. You wouldn't be allowed to set it yourself. You'd have to sign away a wee disclaimer that says you must only have the GMT hand set to GMT, not any other local time you choose to monitor while you're traveling the world. That should be the rule. Ariel, how'd you vote?
Apparently, I'm the only one that gave it a hit, even though I'm outwardly GMT fatigued. As an American, there's nothing we like more than to play military dress up, especially if we don't actually have to fight anything. So this is a perfect military cosplay watch. Okay, it's very pretty looking. You got a strap that is sort of this unspecified, I'm part of some unit. I don't know what that little targeting anchor thing is. Again, I would love it without the GMT, but why not? I think it's pretty. It's the cheapest watch I think we've talked about so far, right? I don't know what it costs. I just know it's the cheapest. I love all the weird limitations, like you can only use their straps, right? Or some other type of straight strap that goes through it. I don't know. It's pretty, even though there's a lot of complaints we could have about it. It's those quirks, right?
Yeah, it is a weird emblem that's on the keeper. I'm not sure who invented that as possibly, or whether it is a real thing. Maybe it was the same folk that put the...
I promise you, it's something Marine Nationale related. We're just not cool, or we're not classified enough.
It
to
shows
know
that your aim is so bad you can
is.
barely hit a boat in the water.
So
Battleship Champion 2024.
So it's French military is what we're saying. So like not a good military. Like one of the poorer militaries. Is that what we're saying?
No, this is Marine Nationale related.
Right,
no, like the FXD. This is Marine Nationale. That's what the thing is on the back, right?
Good?
This is something with the Marine Nationale.
Red, white, blue, French. I get it.
Right. Okay. That's fine. So it's not just been done by the same people that did the design emblem for Bremen.
This is what does the French military have? Like 2 boats? I mean, what do they got?
I mean, yeah, they've got an aircraft carrier. It's not a very good one,
good.
But you know.
Not very good one. You mentioned a mediocre aircraft carrier.
Well, they're spending all their money on Tudors if they bought their aircraft carriers.
They can't fight, but their soldiers are just so handsomely dressed, okay?
They're always on... Well, see, the problem... This is... Okay, let's just get a bit... European judgment here. It's a GMT watch, which is Greenwich Mean Time. That comes from a whole debate that happened many moons ago about whether the central time meridian would be in Greenwich or be in Paris. So the irony is not lost on me.
Rick, it's a Zulu time watch.
Yeah, but it says
GMT on the dial. It should say Zulu time on the dial.
So do we think that's why they called it Zulu time? Because the French Marine Nationale refused to have GMT included in the watch title? Because that just shows another battle that the French military lost.
They could just call it Paris Mean Time. Just put PMT and see if anyone notices.
PMT. Yeah, that's never going to be misinterpreted. Okay, where did we get to? David, did we get your opinion? I can't even remember now.
It's all a blur, isn't it? I gave it a maybe because I would get another Pelagos. I'm deeply in love with the LHD for some reason. I would just go for that titanium bracelet, cool colorway, all the rest of it. That's what I would get. And I'm not a fan of this FXD, like this fixed lock structure on these. So yeah,
good stuff, Guy.
I give it a maybe. I think our Light Mania is the same colours and looks a lot better for a tenth of the price. To get that out there.
And is yours a Zulu time?
I'll open this up to a little debate if we've got time. I don't get, and no one does this, and I know the history, but like a GMT gives you 3 time zones that's the point of the rotating bezel. But the Bremont one has the 24 hours kind of on the dial and has a dive bezel. And then you get 2 time zones and the timing function. And surely that's better.
No, the old Bremont did that. The new updated Bremont S300 swapped it out for a 24-hour bezel and then made it unidirectional on top of that, which is the absolute worst thing you could have done to that watch. But I'm with you. I think a GMT watch should have a fixed 24-hour scale. If you want to have 3 time zones with the bezel, great. But I've always looked at the Rolex GMT Master 2 and thought, if you put just 1 extra 24-hour scale on it, the bezel would be a lot more practical, because as soon as you rotate the bezel to access a 3rd time zone, you've lost your reference point for the second time zone. So but Grand Seiko, Islander Watch, Notice, a bunch of other guys put a little fixed 24-hour chapter ring, and that completely remedies
Yeah,
the
but
issue.
I think a fixed chapter ring, and then you have a dive bezel, then you've got a timing feature as well. I think that's just a much.
Is this the new D-Trash we're hearing about, Guy? Are you gonna make a Zulu time?
Why can't we go the Doxa route? Just have both scales on there. Not that Doxa does both those scales, but Doxa has bezels with 2 scales on there.
Yeah, I just think it's a weird use of a bezel, and like on the Polar Explorer or something where it is fixed and it doesn't turn. Makes sense, but I just for a rotating bezel.
Are we about to bring up all those Panerai GMTs that you can't use as a GMT?
I was
no
just
scales?
about to say. But that's the Panerai is a 12-hour GMT display, and it just has a day-night indicator. But mostly you can just look out the window to determine.
Well, and the GMT will never be the most useless function on the Panerai because there's the equation of time sitting right below it that absolutely takes the cake.
Always the most useless complication, but still the prettiest. Ripley, how did you judge this watch?
I said it's a maybe. Unlike David, I actually really like the FXD concept. I like how there's no point of failure with the strap. I mean, short of the strap just unfurling on your wrist, there's, this fixed bars mean it's pretty much going to stay there short of disaster. It's a bit too big for my wrist. I really wish they do a FXD style watch in a slightly smaller case diameter, especially because it doesn't have the same depth rating or the helium escape valve as the full-size Pelagos. It feels like it has a much lower depth rating. You could easily get that down to a more truncated package. So I wish it was smaller, but the thing that kind of irks me on this, other than the fact that I'm so far removed from being in the Marine Nationale, I'd feel like I was LARPing wearing it. It's weird that it's like vintage inspired, yet it's supposed to be this contemporary collaboration with this active military unit. The tinted lume, the kind of washed out colors. Part of why I thought the original Pelagos FXD was such a hit was because it felt like a very, very modern Tudor. And this feels like they did that, but then gave it like the Black Bay treatment and sort of made it vintage leaning, but then it has this contemporary military tie-in. So it kind of feels a little bit confused as far as what it wants to be. I would have preferred to see this in just like crisp black, white, make it as modern looking as possible. Maybe do blue if you wanted to do the French Navy thing in there, but like it just thematically seems a little bit confused. But in concept, Pelagos FXD GMT, I love that in concept, so it's a maybe.
Right, and finally for Dave, we haven't given him his full usefulness. No, his full. How would you describe it? Okay, I don't know. Ripley, we haven't given you your full doses of Breitling recently. We haven't celebrated the Breitling man that you've become. So let's look at this. The Breitling Avenger night mission watch that you reviewed as a new release. Tell us a little bit about this before we give it some judgment.
So the Avenger was was given a big generational update last year. They rolled out sort of an updated case silhouette. When the models originally debuted, it was a time and date, a GMT, and a chronograph. They've now really started to flush out the Avenger collection with additional sizes. So you've got 2 additional sizes of the chronograph. One's smaller in 42 mil in steel. One's larger at 46 mil in titanium. The original version was 44 in steel. But alongside those additional sizes of the chronograph, you have the night mission models, which are black ceramic cased versions of those 3 equivalents. So the time and date and the GMT more or less follow the blueprint of their siblings as far as dimensions, 42 mil and 44 mil respectively. You get a carbon fiber dial in them, which is kind of cool. And then you've got a 44 mil black ceramic chrono for the night mill mission GMT, along with a larger 46 mil version. But it's basically Breitling extending the night mission concept, which is something that previously existed, now into the mainline Avenger collection. It's not a thematic thing. It's not a U.S. Navy tie-in. It's now just the black ceramic versions of the core collection models, but you get different sizes, different colorways, carbon fiber dials, and all of that.
Okay, is it a hit? Is it a miss? Is it a maybe? 1, 2, 3, go. Hit. Oh, maybe from David. This the hit of the week. This Breitling Ariel. Why is this a hit?
It's just decent looking. It's cool. It's kind of the Breitling that we like. I'm not saying every version is necessarily the one for me, but Breitling knows how to make a handsome quasi military aviation-y. I mean, the problem with these watches in the past is it wasn't clear even what collection they went into. If you didn't tell me it was an Avenger, I'd be like, is it a Colt? I don't know, something like that. But they look cool. The chronograph is probably the best proportioned one because these have sort of always been good as chronographs. But I could see myself liking a 3-hand even. And you said there's the GMT there with I guess this satisfies guys' problems.
Yes.
With the other one there. It's got that,
Not all
fourth
guys'
carbon
problems.
dial there, so you don't have
That is perfect. That's exactly how they should have done it.
There's no like boring flat dial.
But it's a collar style GMT, so there's also that guy. Are you all right with that?
I like this. I really like this.
He's into it. He's into it. Yeah, I think we all agree. It's like if someone just said like choose a watch to wear, these would be fine. These would be nice stuff. I hope the bezel doesn't get scratched too much up. Those rider tabs as they call them look like they're in polished metal. I do worry about their long-term durability, but
are they polished metal or are they the black ceramic? And it's just it's just how it kind of appears shiny when it's at a different angle. If you look at some of the pictures, it appears that
the ceramic is the lower layer, and that upper layer I think is not. I could be wrong, but it looks like there's two. It looks like those might be metal.
I didn't see anything mentioned to the contrary, but you know how like sometimes a modern ceramic sub bezel, like whatever part's in the light gets kind of washed out and gets that steely gray look. So I as far as I know, it's ceramic.
Yeah,
all ceramic.
Maybe
but,
it's hard to tell. I mean, the pushers definitely are not ceramic.
Yeah, those are titanium, as is the case.
I think that's sort of the weird part. Those like wrong colored crown and pushers, which I guess in some light could look cool, but I think we all agree those should have been black.
Cool. David?
Yeah, I gave it a maybe simply because the price is rather high for something like this. Otherwise, they're fantastic watches. It's only the price that kept it from a hit for me.
Okay. Guy, is this your dream GMT now?
Well, it's not a proper dive bezel, but it's pretty good still. I really like it. I agree about the pushers. I think on the 3-handed, like the crown's alright, but the pushers really stand out. But yeah, I'd buy this. I'd buy this definitely. I think the 3-handed actually is nicer than the chrono personally.
Yeah, $6,300 for the cheapest watch on display here. Ripley are Breitling pushing the envelope for a 3-hander watch?
Yes, but I don't feel like these are the ones that are actually pushing the envelope. I think this at 6,300 is a more compelling value proposition than the stainless steel one, just because you get a carbon fiber dial, black ceramic case. It looks cool. I said it's a hit simply because I would agree that Breitling is getting a bit ambitious with its pricing, but that's true for every single one of the brand's models and collections. The Avenger has historically been one of the more attainable collections, so if you look at what it offers relative to other Breitling models, it actually represents a pretty compelling value. So you still get a BO1 movement in the chronograph, you get a black ceramic case, you take the most expensive one and it's still roughly the same price as a standard steel Navitimer. So it's not, I don't think they're outrageous relative to other Breitling models, and I think this latest generation of the night mission ones strikes a nice balance of feeling like the uber tactical Breitling that we kind of know with these models, but not being so comically spec themed that they look like the older Avenger night mission models, which were so hyper masculine they encroached upon satire. But I think this is a great evolution for the collection, and I love Breitling, so I happily wear any of these except maybe the turquoise one.
I do think the turquoise one's a bit weird that's the bright color they chose. And
it honestly must have been popular enough and they green lighted it. It makes no sense to do that as a night mission one, but
that's a loom dial. There was only one picture in the email that showed that it glows in the dark, and no other picture, not on their media site, not on the product page, nowhere. And yesterday I brought the Super Ocean Heritage back to the boutique so that they can ship it back to a review unit that I had. and they had this watch right then and there, and not even the boutique staff knew that this had a luminous dial. So we checked it out because I saw that one picture, that low resolution picture, just dumped into an email, and it's true, it actually lights up. It's not super bright, but the turquoise dial, the entire thing just glows in the dark, which
Does
is
does it glow a different color? Does the turquoise glow a different color to the numerals?
I think maybe it's a bluish color, and probably the indices are green, but I couldn't tell you.
So when you're part of the SEAL team unit going in to all buy the same watches because
You got
you're
shot first.
all being men together, the one that gets this that isn't told by the boutique that it glows in the dark is the first one. Is the one caught smoking the
I think
cigarette.
if you went in with your SEAL team and with the one that came out with the turquoise watch, you've got more worries from the team.
It's lights up for you.
Anyway, good stuff. Right, well, that's the everything from Breitling. That's our main show for this week. If you want to see the little bit of preamble that we did and stay for a little bit post match, then you need to go to the aBlogtoWatch Weekly live show. So, other than that, if you choose to find it, then it's goodbye from all of us. Have a great week. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.